going on, FA Nation? Welcome back. This is the Fantasy Alarm NASCAR DFS podcast. I'm Dan Malin, and I am joined, as always, by our three-time FSWA NASCAR Writer of the Year, Matt Selz. Matt, how's it going? Chicago this weekend. Pretty cool to be previewing this race once again. Hopefully better weather this summer. But we're also coming off a bit of a chaotic finish last week at Nashville. It saw Joey Logano get his first win of the season. And now all three Penske drivers have seemingly won in the last month.
Yeah, so funny story about last week. I was out and about with, I don't remember exactly what I was doing, but I was out and about with the kids. And, came back, and that evening there was some Olympic trials that we were watching between the gymnastics and the track, and then, the race in Nashville. And it got to, I think, 20 laps to go. I was like, okay, this looks pretty well in the bag. Like, I'm going to flip it to the gymnastics. And then I see updates keep coming in that the race is still going.
Yeah.
I'm like, get another red flag? Weather show up? Like, what happened? Nope, just Austin Cindric can't drive.
Yep.
And then apparently nobody can drive in overtime. 5 times of overtime, 25 extra laps. It was nuts. As Letarte said, I may have gone an exit past where I wanted to at some point, but I've never gone to the next town. But I do have questions about how Joey Logano saved that much fuel. That was a huge talking point this week because he went.
Denny Hamlin had a pretty interesting theory.
I must have missed on his podcast.
I think he declared this on his podcast. He said something along the lines of that the Chevys and the Toyotas have more horsepower, which should kind of like raise the eyebrows of people within NASCAR. So he says that,
not necessarily, because they've all had different amounts of horsepower basically the whole time. There's a range in which they can be.
So Hamlin's argument was that, because like the Toyotas at least had more horsepower than the Fords, that he was burning through fuel quicker and that he wasn't able to just stretch it as long as Logano could. But even Logano, I mean, if there was one more caution, he would have just experienced what Hamlin had after the first 2 or 3 because he would have run out of fuel.
Right. He said he was out of fuel in turn 3 on the last lap.
Yeah. But, that is ultimately NASCAR. It sucks that Austin Cindric just, like, ruined the day. I wasn't having a great DFS day, but I think I was tripling up. I only did 3 lineups last week. But, like, DraftKings Pick 6, once again, offered some outstanding props, and I was feeling great about all of them. If Denny Hamlin cruises to victory with 2 laps to go and they don't have the overtime fiasco, like, once again, right, I'm looking really good, and all my props are hitting. I probably would have turned about $80 into about $450 just on the Pick 6, and I was feeling great. The multiple restarts happen, and I lose the finishing position props on Elliott and MTJ, and it was just, again, just something happened that just screwed up the picks, and that's unfortunately just NASCAR. Eventually, it's going to work out in my favor, but maybe it's Chicago. I don't know. But yeah, very frustrating race, and a lot of blame can go on Austin Cindric.
Yeah, I did think it was overall a pretty fun race in regulation to watch. It was passing. It was, the restarts were nuts. Got like 4 wide on the restarts.
And even the fun thing about the restarts was like you started looking at certain guys like Corey LaJoie, Zane Smith, Carson Hocevar, and you're like, these guys have plenty of fuel. Like if they can just get 2 clean laps, like these guys on smaller teams have a legit shot if the big dogs lose fuel. But then LaJoie on one of the restarts took on some damage. Carson Hocevar had a pretty hefty fine levied his way, and rightfully so because he wrecked a guy under caution.
Yeah, he wrecked a guy under caution. He bumped him twice and then wrecked him. I think it was 50,000 or 25,000 and 25 owner points.
Yeah,
it was $50,000 and 25 owner points.
Kid's super talented, but he's done that crap for so long. Like he was notorious for it in the Truck Series.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens because there's a few Cup drivers that already dislike him, and he's not even a full-time. But yeah, surely Chicago's weather has to be better this weekend than it was last year when they got biblical amounts of rain. That I
I
know people complain
looked at the report. I think Saturday is perfectly fine. I saw Sunday morning might have a shot at some rain, but I think the afternoon and the evening will be perfectly fine.
Well, hey, we've all gotten experience on the wet tires now, right? So we can tell people when to put them on and when to take them off, and and all that good stuff, right? Yeah, last year's Chicago race was outstanding. It was chaotic. I think Kyle Busch hit the barrier in turn 6 like 9 times, maybe. I don't know. By the way, do you see his luck isn't turning around in the lower divisions either? He was racing a modified race earlier this week and got spun from like second place.
Poor guy.
Late in the race.
It's almost endearing.
Yeah, watching him get kicked around like this is, I don't know. It's interesting at this point. But anyway, so last year's Chicago race was chaotic. Not only from the wet start to nobody having been on the track very much at all previously, because it was a new track, new layout, never before raced. And then we had a massive pileup at the end of the race, and then
Which is funny because this course has absolutely zero runoff. So a pile up, it just backs everything up, and it just becomes a mess to sort out.
Yeah, it looked like rush hour traffic in Chicago, except some folks were sideways. I expect a better overall race this year with more actual racing and less chaos.
I'm hoping just for a better weekend in general because remember, even the Xfinity Series was called after 25 laps and only 16 green flag laps were run.
Yeah, that's true.
Complete disaster for Xfinity.
I forgot about that. They didn't even like what was even the point, to be honest. So yeah, I think the drivers are generally more optimistic about the race this weekend, which is good. We will have practice and qualifying and racing all happen Saturday street circuit, so NASCAR can't fully close down the course until like midnight tonight, basically. So that's always fun. But yeah, I don't know. Are you using just previous road courses this week?
Yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say you can look at just road course data. I don't know. I would probably only use the data from like 2023 and 2024. I don't know how invested I want to be in any data from 2022, which is the first year that they ran the next gen car. And it took a lot of teams just to get up to speed. And like there's the Coda race from that year, which was nonsense. So I'm perfectly fine. And we do know the drivers that should thrive in this style of race.
And so does DraftKings. Get ready to
yeah, that's a great segue, actually.
Yeah. So I'm doing that as well. I'm just using all the road courses. That's kind of.
Do you really take away like? Is there a difference between like a road course and a street course? I guess on this one, maybe like sharper turns.
Yeah, sharper turns, less runoff.
There's less elevation changes. Yeah.
It's generally more flat, although there is some elevation. But we also can't just use street courses because I don't run them. Literally, last year was the first ever street course in a while. Like you could theoretically say the original Daytona races were half street, half beach. But like, we're going back a ways, right? Before Daytona International Speedway even existed. So in that regard, yeah, we're gonna look at. But in terms of like segmenting out the road courses, I mean, if you want to kick Coda out because it's the highest speed, longest one, maybe.
Very technical.
But like, then you got to kick out Watkins Glen because it's all about speed and not a whole lot of technicality there. But the shape kind of looks like Chicago, so there's that. But yeah, in general, we're just gonna use the road course averages, and then when you see the charts and scoring and stuff in the playbook, it'll be from the last 5 road course races, just to give you an idea of kind of strategy. It doesn't necessarily hold true this weekend, especially if certain people decide to run into the tire barriers and get a whole bunch of debris everywhere like we did last year. Didn't Austin Dillon run into it like 5 times too? It was I think the RZR boys were very fond
He
of.
may have. It was a tough course for a lot of people, except for
Yes,
maybe like
yes, it
Shane
was.
Van, SVG, and Justin Haley.
Yes, except for those two dudes, they figured it
Yeah.
out pretty well. So we're gonna start taking a look here at the DK pricing for this week, and the first thing that sticks out is having 3 drivers over 10K.
I guess we can't be too surprised by the group. Larson is a threat on almost any kind of track, in any car, in any series. Um, Bell's good on road courses, and honestly, after a rough April, he's really turned it on.
Yes.
And for the last 6 races, he's led at least 80 laps. Obviously, it's physically impossible to do that this weekend since there are only 75 for this race. But 2 wins in that span, top 10 equity. Tough break last weekend at Nashville, but that you could make that argument for almost anybody. And then, SVG, the third driver in the 10K tier, and even 10K flat. Won this race a year ago, but you and I both had our reservations as we were discussing prior to the podcast.
Yeah, so he won it last year in a Trackhouse car.
Yeah.
He is not in a Trackhouse car this year. He is in a colleague car, which they have been very forgettable this year in general. However, do we just have blind faith in his ability to just drive whatever he drives going left and right and make it fast?
Well, I think Allmendinger has provided enough of a sample size this year to show that on road courses in the Cup Series, Kaulig can produce top 5 cars. Dinger, to his credit, did finish 6th there at Sonoma, and I believe he finished 6th there as well at Coda.
Yep.
So SVG obviously has the talent to do that as well. I just think that unless Trackhouse is sharing the setup information with Kaulig, I don't know if Kaulig has the equipment to actually win this race, which is giving me some pause at SVG for a 10K price tag. Love him for the Xfinity Series because he's only 10,500, and Kaulig has shown that they can win races at that level. But for this race, I feel like we're going to get the winner from one of the better teams in the series.
I would agree. I mean, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because if there were more laps, he wouldn't be this highly priced because it's not a road course, because road courses don't have that many laps. So he's this highly priced because it's a road course, but it also cuts into his value unless there's only 2 ways that he kind of meets this 10K price tag. Either he wins, regardless of where he starts, or he has an atrociously bad qualifying and starts far back, and we just have faith that he can park this thing in the top 10 and get you PD.
Yeah.
But if that's the case, then he becomes a chalk play because everybody's going to expect the same thing. So he is quite tricky for me at this price tag. He didn't exactly give us the good feelings at Coda either when he started 12th and finished 21st.
And again, that was like kind of a rough weekend for him too, because I believe he led 20 laps in the Xfinity Series race, but got spun on the last lap, and then he finished outside the top 20 for that race as well. But again, could blow us away in practice and qualifying. He showed he had absolutely no issues navigating this field last year, but again, better equipment.
Yeah, he literally showed up. Now he had been in the simulator, but first time on track, he was running solid laps, and then he just kept beating up on the field in the actual race.
And in the end, like, everybody was on like a level playing field last year because they didn't have the experience. He probably just had the upper hand simply because it did cater more to his strengths, whereas this was new for everybody. Now everyone at least got a taste of it last year, and there's probably more data and probably just more research, and the teams know what to expect.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the next grouping in 9K, I mean, anybody this high on the price tag is going to be playable basically. But if we're going Colleague, I'd rather take the $1,000 savings and just go Allmendinger.
Yeah, I would agree. He at least showed us that he can grab a top 10, potentially top 5 at Coda and Sonoma. So I'm with you there. But I do think, I don't know, I really think Chase Elliott has a legitimate chance to get his second win of the season this weekend.
I do too. I mean, he's still, I would say, the premier road racer in the Cup Series over the last 10.
I also hate that the last 2 podcasts we've hyped him up as like not having really had a bad race by any means this year, and still hasn't. But like he's coming since I made that proclamation about 2 weeks ago, he's finished 18th in each of the last 2 races.
Yeah, it hasn't been good. And then he lost. Then he lost one.
Speed's been there though.
Hendrick ended their deal with Hooters, so one of his sponsors is now out. But yeah, I mean, he's still. If we look back over the last 10 road races in the Cup Series, sure, Chase Elliott doesn't have a win, but he's right there in terms of average finish. He's basically tied for third with Allmendinger. He's a tenth of a spot behind Christopher Bell because Elliott's at 10.6, Seabell's at 10.5. The only one better is Chris Buescher at 7.3.
Yeah,
but nobody has more top 5s than Chase Elliott. Nobody has. He's second in top 10s, third in top 10s with 6. So, again, the leader there is Chris Buescher. But I do think Tyler Reddick's a little sneaky here.
Yeah, as he should be. He has, 3 wins in the next gen era on road courses?
Yeah. So, and he's been outside of the Iowa deal, which wasn't really a great race for him. He's just been reeling off top 5s and top 10s like the last 6-7 races.
I also like that he's kind of changing his mindset a little bit too. He's one of the nicest guys in the series, it would seem, but he actually finished third last week at Nashville, and he actually seemed legitimately pissed off about it. It's like kind of like that when a driver is just not satisfied, even with a top 5 finish. He does have a win under his belt this year, so he's not like sweating out a shot at the playoffs, but had a 101.5 driver rating in this race last year, despite finishing 28th, which basically says he was running well most of the day. Something happened at cost of track position. He just didn't finish well, but the car had speed, and he has shown that he can win on road courses in the next gen era.
Yeah, especially unproven road courses.
Yep.
As well. So I quite like him. Look, Buescher, I think 8,800 for Buescher is kind of a bargain.
It is, because we have seen that he is pretty good on road courses, and honestly, he's got 3 top 5 finishes in the last 4 races, just coming into Chicago, and one of those was a top 3 finish at Sonoma.
Correct, and he still needs a win to lock his way into the playoffs. He's come tantalizingly close multiple times this year, and just keeps getting bitten late. So you put in the fact that we're winding down the regular season here because there's not that many more races left before the playoffs. The guy needs a win. He's over the last 10 races, based on average finish and top 10s and whatnot, he is the best road course racer in the Cup Series. And you're getting him for a little more than average price.
Yeah.
Pretty hard to say no to Chris Buescher. Now
do you want to know what's that?
I said now it gets a bit interesting to go find some guys.
Ross Chastain really sticks out to me, though.
Okay.
So Trackhouse is not running 3 cars for Chicago this year. They're running 2. Daniel Suarez has a win already, so he's locked into the playoffs, pending there aren't a variety of new drivers to get a win this year. We've seen both Suarez and Chastain win in the next gen car on a road course. Chastain has looked sporty on the road courses this year. He was top 5 at Sonoma a few weeks ago. And then at Coda earlier this year, he led 10 laps, only finished 7th. But at the same time, we know Trackhouse knows the setup that they need. to potentially win this race for the second straight year. What is keeping the team from necessarily either just going with the exact same setup for their car, or maybe even using the same chassis that they used for SVG's car last year and just giving it to Chastain at 8,200, when the data on road courses this year for Chastain has been great?
Agreed.
Okay.
Agreed. I was waiting for that SVG part, and then you nailed it, and then I'm like,
Okay.
I got nothing else to add, man. Verbal retweet.
All right. I just realized Denny Hamlin's only 8K for a Cup Series race.
Yeah, but in fairness, road courses haven't been his
I know.
thing of late.
Yeah.
Like, if we sort based on average finish over the last 10 races, Justin Haley in those 10 races has a better average finish than Denny Hamlin.
That's
Bubba
gross.
Wallace, the guy we give shit for, sorry for cussing, give credit for not being able to make right turns.
Yeah.
Has an average finish of 20.8. Denny Hamlin has an average finish of 20.6.
All right. I guess we can skip over Denny.
I mean, it's just interesting. Like I don't know if his driving style doesn't mesh with how you have to drive the next gen car on road courses, because he's been a decent road course racer previously, not like an elite upper echelon one, but he was good for a shot at winning every so often, and now he's just totally fallen off. But yeah, I don't really think, unless Denny's on the pole and we have a little bit of chance of him some laps early, I don't see that much intrigue in Denny Hamlin or Ryan Blaney, for that matter, who's not been the best at road course racing.
Is the best Penske option this week possibly Austin Cindric?
Yes.
Ugh, it's so ugly to admit.
I mean, we also, you talk about Denny Hamlin at 8,000. You got Joey Logano at 7,600. He literally just won last week.
Needed some help, but yes, he did get there.
I mean, yes, it wasn't the cleanest win.
You know,
teammate again though, but you know,
Logano was. Oh, never mind. I'm looking at the wrong. Well, I mean, Logano did get the pole for Sonoma, finished outside the top 20, but led 16 laps, and then he started 35th and finished 11th at Coda. So I won't write him off completely.
Yeah, I mean, but just based on skill and like knowledge of how to road course race.
Yeah, I get it.
I still give the edge to Cindric. He didn't have the best Coda.
Yeah, probably.
But he did manage to move up a little bit again at Sonoma, which he seems to be able to do. I feel like when the passing gets tough on road courses is when Cindric really starts to show up. Pure speed on road courses is not necessarily his thing. So like if you look at Coda where it has pure speed, not great out of Cindric. But where you look at Sonoma where passing is tougher, he moves up pretty well. I would again say, going back to the Hendrick folks, I think Alex Bowman's kind of a sneaky guy in this grouping down here.
If there is a prop, any kind of prop on Alex Bowman to lead laps for this race, like on DraftKings Pick 6, like there have been the last couple of weeks, just take the under.
I mean, he's
led 6 laps all year. Hasn't led a single lap since what feels like March. I do not expect him to run up front. But, like, again, for DFS, you don't need dominator points we kind of disregard. It's like if you get them for a road course, great, but you need your drivers to finish well for those dominator points to even matter. But, again, he's cheap, pretty affordable. It depends where he starts, but he can certainly pay off. There will be multiple paths for him to pay off that price tag.
Yeah, I don't mean I need him to run up front. He's just kind of a sneaky decent road racer.
Yeah.
And price tag, I think it's perfectly fine. Um, that being said, he did wreck out last year, so
Um, any interest in Joey Hand?
a little.
Yeah, like the equipment will be good. We
The
talked about
equipment,
Busher, and like Hand's going to be in similar equipment. Probably won't be as good as Keselowski or Busher's car, but still, it's an RFK car, and he has a road racing background.
yeah.
Never had a good finish in the Cup Series though when he has raced, but this is the best equipment he's ever going to get.
Yeah, I mean, especially with Busher basically being able to tell you how to set it up to make sure that it's running in the it's got a top 10 setup basically. Yeah, I would take a shot if you're looking to get a little different, which this race will certainly take people getting different. Joey Hand is worth it. He hasn't raced yet this year in the Cup Series. But you know, I would say of folks in this range below 7K, there's a reason why he's the top price guy because he has the road racing background, um, to his credit. But now it's where it gets ugly.
Yeah, we can't really assess Todd Gilliland the same as we have in recent weeks simply because this is not an oval, although he did grab a top 10 at Sonoma. So, again, we kind of have to pump the brakes and see where he qualifies. But I do agree. I think Justin Haley will be popular because I think people will see last year's run and what he did. But I think there was some pitch strategy involved there, and a caution came out at the right time, and he just had track position on the entire field. But he raced Shane SVG. I'm not going to even try to announce SVG's name. That, yeah. But he raced him pretty hard for a few laps. What's that?
Is it CNBC? You should hire me.
There you go.
I can actually pronounce the name. Yeah, he was actually racing him quite well, quite fair, quite hard.
Yeah.
But yes, I will say that last year's showing had a lot to do with pit strategy and avoiding a pileup and getting a caution at the exact right time to keep his track position. But he also didn't go backwards. It's not like because we saw guys going backwards even though they had good cars.
Yeah.
We saw people be able to pass and move up through the field at various points. So he clearly held his own. And Justin Haley did get, not a great Sonoma race, but he did finish 17th at Coda. So if you can get a top 20 out of Justin Haley, I think you'd be perfectly fine with that.
Yeah, but kind of like what you said, once you kind of dig around to the rest of this range, it gets a little ugly, and you're pretty much just going to be trying to look for guys that are offering PD.
Yeah, essentially. I don't know. Knowing what we know about Bubba Wallace, are we taking the price? He's basically equal to Denny Hamlin, but for like $2,800 less.
Probably not, just because I think he's going to still qualify pretty well. And by the standard, and I'm setting that standard at Bubba qualifying well on a road course is probably between like P12 and P20.
He qualified 18th at Sonoma, and he qualified 10th at Coda.
If he does that, he needs chaos and to keep the car clean. I don't have the faith in him to do that. Granted, I don't anticipate he'll draw a ton of exposure in DFS. So there's probably going to be leverage either way. He's admitted that he hates. It's not that he hates road course racing, but he's just not good.
Correct. He started 18th at Sonoma, finished 20th, started 10th at Coda, and finished 15th. Which, okay, 2 top 20s, but when you're starting up there, it brings no value. I don't know. This bottom tier is going to get weird. We should expect chaos. Eric Jones, though, did, by the way, with the chaos last year, moved up from 21st to 16th. How about that? Ryan Priest moved up from 28th to 15th, so he got these things. Gilly pulled off a top 20 here last year too, by the way. So there's a little bit of, I'm not going to say stack to back, but there is a little bit of the guys in the back, if they can keep it clean and avoid the chaos, then they have a chance to move up. But we're not just like stacking the back and banking on it like it's a Talladega race or something.
Yeah, you do need the win equity in the lineup.
Yes, you're going to need dominant points. You're going to need the win equity, and then a little bit of help from chaos.
What's the content schedule looking like for you this weekend? I know for me, the Xfinity Spur recording this 11:30 a.m. Eastern time on Friday, but the Xfinity Playbook's already up. It'll have updates once we know the starting order on Saturday. But what's the schedule look like for you?
So, Best Bets piece will be out later on Friday for the Cup Series. Then the Playbook will be out Saturday afternoon. I'm hoping to write most of it later today and tomorrow morning, and then after practice and qualifying, which is early in the afternoon on Saturday. Kind of put in the driver pool and see how we feel about some stuff. And then projections and rostership will be out Sunday morning once we get kind of some late breaking news or whatnot. So that's kind of the content schedule this week. And yeah, we have 2 races left before the Olympic break.
Awesome. I love the Olympic break.
Yeah, we got like 2.5 weeks.
It's nice because when the Olympic break happens, I'm like, I would really go for a race this week. But like the break kind of like rejuvenates you a little bit for the excitement of NASCAR, even though NFL typically comes back and the DFS contest during the playoffs kind of suck.
Yeah, I mean, because NFL eats everybody's stuff. But yeah, we've got I know that Indy is the last race before the break. Pocono is next week.
Cool.
Talk about fuel cards.
Yeah, but Matt, did you have anything else you need to
add? Nope, not particularly. Still a relatively new course. I'm excited about it. It raced better than I thought it was going to last year when we first saw the layout of the race.
Yeah.
Or the track. Expecting it to race better this year than it did last year. Weather should be back on NASCAR's side for once. So, yeah, let's get ready for a fun race in Windy City.
Awesome stuff. All right. Well, Matt, thank you so much for your time. Best of luck to you this weekend, and best of luck to the FA Nation.
Best of luck, FA Nation.